Good evening and welcome to the Grand Prairie City Council meeting for Monday, September 8th. I'd ask everyone in attendance to rise and join us in singing O Canada. Thank you to the National Film Board for the images of our country and to our very own Grand Prairie Boys Choir for the audio. We'd move into the adoption of previous council meeting minutes. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I move the minutes of the City Council meeting held August 24, 2015 be adopted.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Did anyone note any errors or omissions, anything we needed to correct before we adopt that set of minutes? I don't see anybody ringing in, so they must be all right. We'll call for the vote. Okay, thank you. That motion carries. We'll move into the adoption of the agenda. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council adopt the agenda as presented with the addition of 9.1.2, use of public lands bylaw, 9.2.2, Wee Links, and 9.2.3, Alberta Summer Games.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on the agenda? I think that handles those additional items that came from our committee meetings just today. The use of public lands was from our Community Growth Committee meeting, and the other two items were from our Community Living Committee meeting this afternoon. So I think that handles all of our ones that we needed to get on tonight. Any other discussion or debate? I don't see anybody ringing in, so I'll call for the vote. Thank you. And that motion carries as well, and this brings us to the delegation portion of our agenda. This is an opportunity for anyone in the community to come forward and address council on any matter. You don't have to let us know ahead of time that you're coming. I see one excited and eager delegation out of the many people in the gallery choosing to come forward. Sir, you are no stranger to this council chamber, but I'd ask you to introduce yourself for the record and welcome.
Your Worship, Dan Piercy. I'm the CEO of the Grande Prairie District Chamber of Commerce. I just came to answer any questions that might come forward on the item that is brought to you from this morning's meeting in regards to our digital sign at Center 2000.
Thanks very much, Mr. Piercy. Obviously, you handled a bunch of questions today during committee, but appreciate you being here to give council members that weren't in attendance an opportunity. Did anyone have any questions for Mr. Piercy or the Chamber of Commerce with regard to their digital sign application? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I read a bit of it, but exactly where's the sign? I wasn't at the meeting, it was another function. Exactly where's the sign going on your side of the road?
It actually sits at the end of the parking lot on Center 2000 property. There is a map within the document where I can throw one up for you to look at here. So it's just at the end of the parking lot, close to the sundial.
I just had a question on the sundial. It's a pretty nice monument in the city. how's that going to look? Have you thought about that, putting a big screen right by the sundial, which a lot of people look at and really like it in the city? Like the variance of how close it's going to be. And so
Yeah, it will be in with visual range, and it shouldn't interfere with the view, particularly coming south. There'll be no interference with that view. Only from the extreme south side will there be any interference at all. But it's actually better viewed from actually the west side anyway.
so it won't affect the sundial, how it works. How people,
Oh no, it won't affect the sundial how it works. No,
that's okay.
it's not that tall.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. We can
Turn it up
create our own
right at night,
shadow
the
then,
sunlight
yeah,
might
but
work at nighttime. Any other questions for the delegation? Councillor O'Toole.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Mr. Piercy, can you tell me if everything goes well tonight, when do you expect this thing to be in full operation?
it takes a period of about 3 months for the sign to arrive and be erected. The construction work would probably start within the next 3 to 4 weeks. There's power that has to be provided in and a concrete base that has to be set. Those would need to be done prior to any frost setting in, so we would be underway as fast as possible.
So, sort of suggesting that would probably be done in the spring.
We would have the sign up within 3 months.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions for the delegation? Councillor Tarrant?
Yes, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Dan, just a question on, in terms of the usage of the sign, is the chamber open to having the city or other community groups have access to the sign, or is that gonna be strictly for chamber?
The the main function of the sign has been used as advertising for businesses within the chamber. We do have a community component, which has been the Amber Alert component. That's one that's being kind of reviewed right now as to some of the timing issues.
Thank you.
Just along that line that Councillor Tarrant brought up, Mr. Pierce, I believe the City of Grand Prairie is a member of the chamber. Is that right?
They are. They can advertise on it.
So the city would have the same rights as any other chamber member to advertise at some time.
Bet.
Councillor Radburn?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Also, I believe this morning I heard that there would be ongoing, I guess, signage identifying Center 2000 as a visitor information center for the city.
Yeah, the sign actually has the Center 2000 logo on it, as well as designating the site as a visitor information center. It's something that we don't have a lot of signage for Center 2000, showing that it is a place to come and gather information. So it's something that the board has also looked at as a need for that location.
Thank you. Councillor Radburn? Councillor Rice?
The events such as the Tour of Alberta, which or the Tourism Association was a big partner, would that be advertised on there, or would the chamber or the tourism have to book that?
That would be done through tourism themselves. The same as Growing the North would be done through the Growing the North Committee or any other such committee that wanted to advertise their event would be done in the same way.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rice. I don't see anybody else in the queue. One last opportunity, Council. Any questions for delegation? When we deal with this as the use of public lands bylaw, that was item 9.1.2. We won't have an opportunity to ask any questions of the delegation, so looks like we've answered all of them. Ms. Piercy, thanks very much for being here tonight.
Much.
So this is still the delegation portion of our agenda. If there was anyone else that wanted to come forward to address council on any matter or share any perspective with council, we do have this opportunity every 2 weeks, and we want to ensure that the council community is aware that this opportunity exists. Doesn't look like we're going to have anyone else come forward tonight, so I'll close the delegation portion of our agenda, and we can move through a few items. We have no public hearings, we have no unfinished business, we have no items under reports, and we'll go straight into committee business. And 9.1, the Community Growth Committee from August 25th, and I think Councillor Clayton, you handled that meeting for us, didn't you?
Part of it. Councillor Thiessen chaired that meeting, and I just wanted to, I'll take from here, recommend that council receive the minutes of the Community Growth Committee meeting held Tuesday, August 25th.
Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Any items of note that we need to capture? Seeing nothing, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. We'll move to 9.1.1. Councillor Clayton?
Thank you, Mayor Given. There was one agenda item, there was many agenda items, but one that specifically is brought forward tonight. The group through the Environmental Stewardship Manager, Michelle Gardner, University of Alberta, presented information regarding the production of thermal energy in the Grande Prairie region. So this team is basically going to be doing, they're from Alberta Innovates and Energy and Environment Solutions. They're going to be doing some research to see the project viability of geothermal energy in the region and the best place in the area to produce it, as well as develop any preliminary economic modeling. So I recommend that Council approve the funding for the University of Alberta's geothermal energy development project with $20,000 from the environmental stewardship budget.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Open for discussion.
Clayton.
Thank you. Open for discussion and debate. Councillor McLean, you're next on the list. Sorry about that, Councillor Clayton.
I was at this meeting, and when everything was said and done to pass it on to council, we were updated, and Chris was there, that the town of Hinton, I do believe, I could be corrected, got on board with $25,000. So if I'm wrong, someone please stand up and tell me. But I believe others are in, and the money's there now from all other municipalities to go forward with this funding.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'm quite in support of this, but I wanted to ask the question before we actually moved on to the vote about what would we be seeing in terms of next steps for this project and in what time frame. And the theme, what's going to be the meat that we see down the road.
Absolutely. And I also wasn't at the committee meeting, so I'd appreciate hearing that as well. I see Ms. Gardner has just joined us at the administration table. So Ms. Gardner, would you like to provide a little overview of the project and the next steps?
Thank you, Mayor Given. The project, most of the funding is underway. As Councillor McLean has suggested, if this is approved, they will have $60,000 from the municipalities, which will allow them to proceed with the project. They will hopefully start by the end of the year. The project will last for a year, and it will give us some information about the viability of a geothermal project, and then as the economic modeling. So that will tell developers if this is something that we could use to produce energy for the community.
Thanks very much. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just a quick question to Michelle. Michelle, I believe the county GP is involved. It just passed tonight, the city of Grande Prairie, and I believe there's 3 other municipalities, 60 or 6,000 each. Which ones are those? Do you have that information?
The municipalities that are given funds are $20,000 from the county of Grande Prairie and $20,000 from a conglomerate of Clearview County, Rocky Mountain House, and I think it's Hinton. And then we would be the final $20,000 for the $60,000. The project as a whole is $200,000.
Councillor Rice.
So part of the project is to determine where in that region that you've outlined would be the best place for a thermal energy project, right? Like, it's not to say it's going to go in Grande Prairie. It could go in Hinton.
Correct, Mayor Given. So I'm going to sort of read from his notes, is that they will look at 10 sites. So they have 10 sites in the 2 sort of locations, the Grande Prairie region and the Clearwater County region. And from those 10 sites, their goal is to generate a centralized, comprehensive data set upon which developers, financiers, legislators, and support industries can draw in order to move geothermal energy products in Alberta forward to commercial electricity production.
So our 20,000 just puts us on the list.
Correct.
Consideration. Okay.
The other part that happens is the $60,000 is then eligible to be matched with funding from Federation of Canadian Municipalities Green Municipal Funds, but they have to have commitment from the municipalities first before they can apply for those funds.
Thanks very much, Ms. Gardner. Any other discussion, debate, or questions? Okay, I don't see anybody ringing in, so I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Clayton, I think that was the last piece of business coming from that committee meeting. Was there anything else that you wanted to highlight before we moved on to our?
Sure. Yeah, just one other item. There was a presentation done by our city planner with a report proposing amendments to streamline the process of adopting bylaws which require a public hearing under the Municipal Government Act. So we're looking forward to seeing that report back from administration regarding that process, which in turn could help save a lot of time in regards to bylaws and public hearings. So.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton, and thanks for stepping in and pitch hitting for our pitch hitter that isn't here today. So we'll move to 9.1.2, which is our item that was added from community growth this morning. And Councillor O'Toole, do you want to handle that?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Given. We did have a community growth meeting this morning. It was a little longer than what I anticipated, but it went through and we got a lot of stuff done. So that's what's the important part. I move that the Community Growth Committee amend bylaw C-10078D, use of public lands, to give permission for this sign to be located on the city-owned property, and that's the Center 2000 site.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. And so obviously a reference to that council approve, and this is in relation to the sign that our delegation addressed earlier. So open for discussion and debate. Councillor Tarrant.
Mayor Given, I will not be supporting this motion for two reasons. The first is in regards to the aesthetic nature of the sign. We've heard lately, we just did a survey looking at signs in Grande Prairie, and there was quite a few citizens have shown concerns for the proliferation of these large electronic signboards coming up across the city, and so we're looking at amendments to limit and regulate some of those where they go. In light of that, I don't think that having a sign located in one of our natural green corridors is the best place. And I think that there's better locations, and I think that we could work with the chamber in providing another place that would be either in a more commercial zone or possibly an entrance feature is something that's been talked about. So that's the first reason. The second is in terms of the use of public lands. I think that there needs to be some greater public benefit derived from the use if we're giving up a use of public land that's owned by city's taxpayers, and I don't see that there's a great enough benefit for the community for this particular project, and I think that there could be some in terms of giving community more access and significant use of the sign, but in this case I don't see that, and so for these reasons I'm choosing to not support this particular proposal. But should it fail, I would be open to alternate locations.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Any other discussion or debate? Councillor McLean.
I concur with what quite a bit Councillor Toronto is saying as well. We're reviewing electrical signs within the city. We know a couple have been put up recently in major travel intersections. We know a study's been done on about our intersections in the city of being more than doubling other community around us for people getting injured and speeding through intersections. I do not like the spot. I think it's better than the previous one started about across the road. And I do believe there's a model within the city of St. Albert of greeting and coming into the area on St. Albert Trail. It might be called Marc Messier, but I don't believe this is the proper spot, and I don't think it's been looked at as well enough. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Any other discussion or debate? Council members? I'll just say that I am supportive of the location that's proposed. I had objected and shared some of the similar concerns with my other two council colleagues previously. I think the site within essentially the boundaries of the Center 2000 property is close enough to that fairly intense use that it makes a clear distinction between that property and Muskasupi Park. So I think that we've come to a reasonable compromise, and I think that it does add value to the community in terms of enhancing what is essentially an existing city facility to make it more viable and better serve the community. So because it has migrated close to an area where there's already development, I mean, essentially it's sitting in a parking lot rather than in a green space, and because it adds functionality and supports city facility and its function, for those reasons, I'm willing to support this location. Any other discussion or debate? I don't see anybody else ringing in, so I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. I think that handles all of our additional items from that meeting. And of course, we'll hear more about that committee meeting next council meeting. So we'll move on to 9.2, the Community Living Committee from August 25th. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move council receive the minutes of the Community Living Committee meeting held Tuesday, August 25th, 2015.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Anything that errors or corrections that we have to catch? I don't see anybody ringing in, so must all be right. I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Council, bear with me, but the next motion is a rather long one. First of all, I would move council approve allocation of the 2015 Parks Improvement Grant funding as follows. Grande Prairie Cricket Association, the amount of $4,000 to assist with the construction of 2 cricket site screens. Secondly, Grande Prairie Disc Golf Association, in the amount of $4,000 to assist with the cost of trash receptacles, course signage, tee pads, and a bench within the course area. Thirdly, Montview Neighborhood Association, the amount of $2,000 to assist in the installation of 10 pieces of outdoor fitness equipment. Fourthly, Highland Park Neighborhood Association, the amount of $1,700 for the installation of 1 picnic table within the park located at 85th Avenue and 98A Street. 6, Friends of Ecole Parkside Society, in the amount of $2,150 as a contribution towards the installation of new playground equipment. 7, Cobblestone Riverstone Neighborhood Association, the amount of $4,000 to assist in the purchase of 2 additional picnic tables. Avondale School Council, in the amount of $5,000 to assist in the purchase of 2 benches and 2 picnic tables. And finally, Operation Playground Society, Mother Teresa School, in the amount of $2,150 as a contribution towards the purchase of new playground structures. So there were 8 applications, and I think the Highland Park was the only one fully funded in terms of the requests. The other, I guess 7 were partially funded. There's only $25,000 in this budget line. The recommendations include 5 neighborhood parks, 3 school site parks, and Musco CP Park, and 1 community park. So those are the recommendations that were brought forward from administration that committee chose to support. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Open for discussion and debate, and I see Councillor Rice.
A couple of questions. Difference in the prices of picnic tables. You see 1 picnic table for $1,700 and 2 for $4,000. Do we know why? It's
I think that we have to look at the details in the applications in terms of it is a matching grant kind of a program too. So maybe one had more monies to match.
okay.
Not sure, Helen.
And the other one is the trash receptacles at the Disc Association. Who is responsible for emptying those?
I think that is an arrangement with Parks and the Disc
Okay,
Association.
so we already have an existing, and they're aware of this. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rice. Any other discussion or debate? Seeing none, then I'll call the question on the Parks Improvement Grant funding. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn, anything else? So actually, you've got your additional items.
I do. So maybe can I just...
You want to cover that past meeting first? Sure.
So at that meeting where this motion came forward, there was also a delegation from the South Peace Historical Society. Mr. Stokes and Mr. Williams were there. And following their presentation, admin was directed to work with the delegation and report back to committee in terms of how the project might be nurtured forward. So that report will be coming in the future here. Fairly, yeah. I think the intent was kind of before our October budget deliberations, we get a report, see if there's something we want to refer or not. And finally, there was a correspondence from government inviting us to bid for the 2018 Summer Games and or the 2017 Alberta 55 Plus Games. And the committee sent this to Sport Council for their recommendation and comments. Actually that came back this afternoon and is one of the additional motions that I'll be making. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Edburn. With that segue, let's move on to the additional agenda items from today's meeting.
All right, so the first two motions relative to the Wheelings Golf Course. I think what I'll do is I'll just quickly give you an overview of the two motions, since this is a kind of a referral from this afternoon, and then I'll speak to the motions in a broad perspective. Motions read in one, that move the council amend the 2015 capital budget to reflect the cost of the refurbishment of the greens at the Wheelings Golf Course at a maximum cost of $520,000, with the funding shortfall not to exceed $180,000 to be covered by the facilities reserve. And a subsequent motion will be a move that council award tender T66432-15 to Evergreen Turf in the amount of $410,236, including GST, and the supply and installation of the underlay pads as the lowest bidder meeting city specifications. So the context is the original budget in the capital plan was for $340,000 for the replacement of greens as grass greens. Upon further review, administration decided to change the project to artificial turf greens. This was primarily done based upon the need for reduced operating costs in the future, such as no need for irrigation of greens. We don't have to buy another mower, $45,000 mower in terms of to mow the greens. It lengthens the season, and ultimately it will get us opening that facility next summer, not 2 years from now. So those were that was some of the background in terms of the change from grass to synthetic greens. The total budget now is $520,000. The tender award, as you noted when I give you an overview of the motion, is that the tender award for installation of turf and underlay is $510,236. The remaining up to $110,000 is for base course construction. This involves removal of the existing green and sand below the green, hauling in crushed concrete, and installing geotextile fabric. This work will be completed partially by the contractor at the rates noted in their bid, and partially by city forces. Transportation department to supply and haul crushed concrete. There's a cost to this that would be charged back to the project. While these are variable costs based on the findings of the excavation, they also reflect the maximum amount that administration will expend on this project. So that's why the motions say not to exceed a certain amount. There's some flexibility there. So that's kind of the context. So I'll start with formally moving that council amend the 2015 capital budget to reflect the cost of the refurbishment of the greens at the Wheelings Golf Course at a maximum cost of $520,000, with the funding shortfall not to exceed $180,000 to be covered by the facilities renewal reserve.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn, and thanks for the overview. I see Councillor Rice.
Okay, please be patient with my ignorance. Not being a golfer, do golfers have any problem with synthetic turf?
Councillor Radburn?
Well, I think when you look at this facility, the ranges from, I think they said 50 yards to 105 yards. So it's really
pitch and putt.
A course, more of a pitch and putt kind of, and for more family oriented, more for youngsters who are learning, and for a good family outing. So if we're not espousing it to be a real golf course, it is a Wheelings golf course, and so I think given our target clientele, I think this will work just fine.
Thank you.
And when you said target clientele, I noticed you're pointing at Councillor Tarrant. Are you assuming he's the kind of golfer that wouldn't mind? Is that...
No, I was just talking with my hands.
Councillor McLean.
Thank Thank you, Mayor Given. I will be supporting this. One of the big reasons is from the first term of council that I was on in 2010 to 2013, we knew money had to be put into South Bear Park, the area there. Just this speaks volumes to here, and we know it was 600,000 then. We know millions more going in this term. This council's really. You just got to look at waste material removal and wonder why that's happening. And it just shows you where the South Bear was falling apart and things had to be fixed. So now we're looking positive. We're looking to the future, and I look forward to this. And I'm glad council moved in the right direction.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Councillor Tarrant.
Also wanted to add the other advantage of putting in the artificial turf is that it speeds up the process, the time in which we can open the facility, and I believe it can now be opened for next summer. And if we would have gone with just a grass screen, it would have been possibly the summer after, maybe longer. So I think it'll be a huge plus to have that open as soon as we can.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. And one other note for the meeting today, I believe part of the need to get this on tonight's council agenda was the contractor actually wishes to start some work this season, and so there's some materials to be ordered and some work to start before the snow flies and before the frost takes over. So just in terms of why the timeliness. Councillor Clayton.
I just wanted to add too, for those who weren't at the committee meeting today, we actually had an opportunity to see the product, and the product that you'll actually hit the ball off of, that you golf on, is very grass-like, and I don't think that anybody will have a problem. So it'll be a great facility once it's done. I look forward to it next summer.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Anything further before we call for vote? Councillor Edburn?
Mayor, just to add, there's a bit of a transition area between the actual greens and the fairways, so to accommodate I guess mowing of the fairways, so that doesn't impact the greens. So it's kind of neat.
Thanks, Councillor Edburn. I don't see anybody else in the queue, so I will call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Edburn?
In second motion, I move the council award tender T66432-15 to Evergreen Turf in the amount of $410,236, including GST and the supply and installation of the underlay pads as the lowest bidder, meeting city specifications.
Thanks very much, Councillor Edburn. Councillor Rice.
Been doing including GST in our motions because we get it all back. So
yeah, sometimes
I don't
it
know
varies.
why we changed that this time.
Sometimes we say excluding, sometimes including, so I'm not sure.
We do get the GST all back. Yeah, so
Good.
so actually what the amount of money will be substantially less.
Hooray.
Yeah.
Still a chunk of change.
Good point, Councillor Rice. Absolutely. As a municipality, we do get that. Yeah, I'm not sure why the back and forth on that one. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion or debate on that motion? I don't see anybody in the queue, so I'll call for the vote to award that tender. That motion carries. I think Councillor Redburn will see the rest of that agenda. Oh, actually, sorry, you have an additional. Yep. One additional. Not done.
So, so my segue is, as I mentioned earlier, actually the Carna was there from the Sports Council, Prairie Sports Council, and with a recommendation, and that recommendation was supported by committee. And so I'll just make the recommendation and just speak to it a bit. I'd move council approve a letter of intent to submit a bid to host the 2018 Alberta Summer Games, either independently or in partnership with the County of Grande Prairie. So some of the feedback we received from the Sport Council today was because we were initially talking about maybe the seniors plus, the 55 plus games. However, those games have been changed in terms of format where they're kind of combining the two and moving it to September. As the council met and had their discussions, a couple of things I guess kind of swayed them in terms of this recommendation. One is that the municipal share of the revenue that have to be put up by the municipalities is half to host the Alberta Summer Games versus the seniors games. I think it was 150,000 versus 300,000. So depending upon partnerships, it would be less. The tourism impact of the summer games is greater in terms of, they had some data there in terms of what one participant would, how many others would join that participant to come to Grande Prairie. So the tourism impact was greater. The summer availability of schools was important too, because the summer games typically use schools, so that reduces the need for hotel and other accommodations. And they are available in the summer, and that fits nicely with summer games. There was some question in terms of not having specific guidelines for the seniors game. Since they're changing their model, the requirements are not yet available for anyone to look at, and so that was a concern as well to both Sport Council and the committee. So the other part of that worth noting in terms of the motion was that I guess the reason it's on tonight is that we have to have this letter of intent to bid in by the 15th of September. So this was the last council meeting we had before we had to get the letter in. So that's why it's here tonight. The county is looking at this on the 14th. So that's why we phrased the motion either independently or in partnership. I think we would be pleased to make the bid in partnership with the county, but pending their decision, we still wanted to submit a letter of intent. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor. Question to Councillor Radburn. I've noticed over the last 5 years of always, it's only a week to go. We gotta put in the request just for a letter. We know it's coming. What is the protocol? Why is it that way? I've seen a few different events, we got to get it in within a week or 2 weeks when we know well for a while. Could you just speak to that for a minute, please? Not saying I'm against the games. I'm just saying the intent sometimes is 1 week to go, send a letter.
Yeah. I think that this time we didn't receive the correspondence. Now, many members can help me, but it was only last meeting or the meeting before that we actually received the correspondence from the provincial departments.
It was just the previous. You referenced that in your report on the previous.
So it was only 2 weeks, right? Yeah. And then we heard today that letter of intent had to be in by the 15th. So I think that one was put upon us. I don't think it was our dawdling in terms of following up on the correspondence. And it's something we might be able to, I guess, influence government in terms of getting those letters out in a more timely manner.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I apologize. Did you make your motion already?
I did.
Okay, so I want to speak in favor of the motion. I think that it's a great opportunity for us to host an event that's not in a traditional season of winter where people assume that we are a winter city. And it'll be an opportunity for us to highlight many facilities and organizations and fields and playing surfaces that we have that are used in the summer. So it'll show that we are actually a four-season city and we have 4 seasons of sport, and I think it's a great opportunity. So I will support the motion.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Councillor Radburn.
The comment I was going to make that might help to speaks to Kevin's point. So the letter of intent has to be on the 15th, but I think we have then after that until November sometime for the actual formal bid to be submitted. And so the Sports Council, I think, will develop a committee to help develop that bid package.
Thanks, Councillor Radburn. Any further discussion or debate on this recommendation? Okay. Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote on whether or not to submit a letter of intent to bid on the 2018 Alberta Summer Games. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn.
And I think that's enough for me today, and I'll talk about the rest of what happened this afternoon in 2 weeks' time.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. We'll move on to the Corporate Services Committee meeting from September 1st, and I think Councillor Tarrant, you handled that meeting for us, didn't you?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Given. I'll move that the minutes of the September 1st Corporate Services Committee be adopted.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? I don't see anybody ringing in, so they must reflect what happened. We'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Tarrant.
have a couple motions coming out of the meeting. So first of all, I'll move that council approve the proposed changes to the Aquaterra Articles of Incorporation, Schedule D. And speaking to that, the past City Council meeting, we approved the unanimous changes to the unanimous shareholders agreement, which allowed for non-voting shareholders to become part of Aquaterra. And this is just continuing that on through the Articles of Incorporation.
Thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Tarrant?
And the next motion will be to that council approve the award of tender T 56-999-15 to Apex Security, an amount of $1,073,063.10, GST excluded, for a 5-year term as a lowest bidder meeting city specifications. And you'll see in the minutes there, it talks about the security monitoring of several of our facilities that will be included in the tender.
Thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Any discussion or debate on this motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Tarrant, anything else you want to highlight from that set of minutes?
That was our only 2 items of business. It was a 14-minute meeting, so it was pretty good.
Well, thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant.
You want me to chair your meeting? I'm open.
No, listen to that, eh? Taking assignments. Okay. Well, then that handles all of our committee business. Oh, Councillor Rice.
I'm wondering if we should get Councillor Tarrant and Radburn to do all the committee meetings. 14 minutes with no disagreements has got to be a record.
Well, Councillor Radburn's meeting this afternoon didn't take only 14 minutes. I don't know about that. Thanks, Councillor Rice. We have no items of correspondence tonight. We had only one delegation. I believe that delegation business was addressed when we addressed the use of public lands bylaw. We have no notices of motion, so that would take us to council member reports, and we'll start first with the Grand Spirit Foundation.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. Just a quick report highlighting 4 items of business from the Grand Spirit Foundation Management Committee meeting of August 28th. Administration brought forth an updated seniors housing application that would request further information that will better capture the needs of applicants, and the result will be enhanced screening and assessment processes and ensure the supports we offer are adequate to provide a quality of life for those applying. Also, we looked at rent supplement. Provincial government, provincial budget was it's funded provincially, and the budget was slightly reduced, so we're looking at reducing a few subsidies and the maximum subsidy to deal with that. Friends of the Foundation Harvest Dinner is September 26th. And we did decide to join AMFA. AMFA is the Alberta Network of Public Housing Agencies. And they speak and advocate with the provincial government on issues facing organizations providing non-profit housing in Alberta. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. The AUMA, Alberta Urban Municipalities Association, Councillor Rice.
I met with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and the industry people regarding amendments to the Municipal Government Act. The minister advised he will be making a major announcement at the AUMA conference on September 25th. He would not go beyond that, so we look forward to what that will be. He is prepared to move forward, and I believe we'll be issuing a time frame at that time. So that was fairly exciting. And the conference is coming up. Registration is extremely active. Those who hadn't decided to go might change their mind with the announcement coming up, right, Councillor Radburn? So that's the news, with everyone holding their breath for now.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. We'll move on to the Peace Airshed Zone, Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. We had our general board meeting August 27th here in the North Conference Room. A couple things that brought up was financials. PAZ is doing very well. There's money in the bank compared to some other air sheds that aren't doing as well. As I said before, in Alberta, we got about 50% coverage on air sheds. Another one is there was an update on network operations. Also, they brought up a MERA draft framework. Basically, a MERA is kind of going to be a bunch of units coming in, land, air, and water. It was brought up in the meeting as municipal areas within PAZA. I think the total 17,000, and then the city, if we were to step on board, it'd be 18,000. So we'd be paying most of the share, and a lot of emissions as well are within Crown and rural areas. But the thing is, they're hoping for us to get on board. They look at things as what we just passed tonight, geothermal funding for $20,000. They're looking at the Wapiti corridor, the money council's put in. So I expect us to have a few meetings from PAZA over the next few months to chat on some things that we already did and maybe we're missing out on the air. So that was brought up in the PAZA meeting. Other than that, it went pretty well, and I was glad to be there.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. And the Philip J. Curry Dinosaur Museum, Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I was just attending the building committee meeting today, and we're paying off some of the bills because the contractors are now completely out of there. That being said, the building committee will probably disband either just before Christmas or just after. So that'll be one meeting that I won't have to attend too often anymore. Just a heads up that we did have our soft opening here coinciding with the tour of Alberta. Between the hours of 4 o'clock and 10, we had over 2,000 people attend the building. That weekend, just over, we had over 5,000 people go through. With that being said, the helicopter rides are being looked at by a number of people, and we've got a deal on right now that if you phone in and the timing is right, there is that possibility that you could get the rides for half price. So there's a phone in, find out when the schedule is. If it's on a weekend or in the evening, we can make it, might possibly give you a deal. The dinosaur ball will be taking place later this month. It'll be right after the AUMA convention. So I'm going to the AUMA, but I'll be coming home early just so I can attend. Other than that, we did have a power outage on the weekend, which caused a little havoc with our computer system, but we've got that all looked after now. So it's a soft opening. We were expecting some things to pop up, and they did. And well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Rice?
Spoke to somebody from out of town that said they drive by that twice a day and the parking lot is always full. They were very excited about the potential. And it has been named one of the 10 tourist destinations, has it not, of the world?
The building itself is one of the 10 to see in the world as we speak, and it is one of the top 10 tourist destinations to come here. We do have a new sign out there. If you happen to be driving by, it's a very beautiful sign. That was, the money was allocated by the Side family. And it looks pretty darn good.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Rice? We'll start Council Roundtable, and Councillor O'Toole, since you're the last with a report, why don't you start? We'll move our way counterclockwise.
Well, I haven't been around Grande Prairie too long this last couple of weeks. Last week I attended the CARB hearings, Assessment Review Board, and that lasted Monday through Thursday. Also, the week before that, I attended the International Firefighters Association Conference, which is known as the Redmond Conference. It was more than I thought it was going to be. Councillor Rice, when I first got on council, she said, if you ever get the opportunity, this is something that is very interesting. The information is very valid. You should consider attending. I did, and I think it was one of the better conventions, you might say, that I've attended, just because of the number of topics that were available to listen in, the speakers. I attended the Fire Ops 101, and one of my teammates was a congressman from Maryland, Chris Van Hollen. There was another teammate, reporter for NBC News. It's just a high-end, high-visible conference to get items that firefighters and, of course, the union have tried to bring up. And it was an eye-opener for, I guess you might say, elected officials to get an understanding from their side. So with all of that, I would recommend in the future, if you're on council and there is an opportunity to attend, this is definitely one of the highlights of my terms. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Toole. Councillor Rice.
I attended the Tour of Alberta banquet at the Pomeroy Inn where the teams were introduced, and it was a very exciting night. I think the enthusiasm, I considered I was very fortunate to be sitting at a table with Mr. Robert Carroll, who was so excited at each and every team member that was introduced that his excitement was contagious. So it was a great night, and I commend the organizers for it, and I commend our staff person, Brian Glavin. I think he put a lot of work into the logistics of closing down a lot of city streets and still keeping stuff moving. So I commend them.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. Councillor Logan. Councillor Logan, thank you. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just pre-warning, this could be long and winded. To speak to about AUMA for Councillor Rice, I want to say about you.
AUMA hasn't even happened yet. How can you report on that?
No, I'm something she just brought up about Councillor Radburn. She's been president for 2 years, and I remember when she was elected, and we were all working very hard to get her elected. Councillor Radburn had 2 new shirts, and he wore her shirt over that the whole weekend. So strong support. The other one I want to say quickly, or two, and then I have a long-winded one. Councillor O'Toole, great job on the national. Very proud of you. You did a very good job for our city. Thank you on the dinosaur for speaking. You spoke very well. Was also another topic, Councillor O'Toole. I was jealous of you last year at the A&W. We attended the MS Cruising to NMS Day. And you bought a T-shirt, and I didn't have my debit card on me to buy a T-shirt. Well, this year I got the T-shirt, and we were there with Councillor Radburn and Councillor Thiessen. Proud again to say that the second year in a row, A&W was on the north side, raised the most monies, I think over 37,000, Councillor Radburn was saying earlier. And something to be very proud in the city. They did a very good job, and we know Northern Alberta MS is a big problem. So I'm not jealous of you no more. I got my shirt. And another quick one is Bank of Montreal. We all heard about Ronald McDonald House. They had an event there Friday ago, and they raised $1,600 for dunking some of their employees in the tank, and I dunked a few. I made sure I didn't dunk one of them, but I dunked. So now I'm going to go off to community safety. We didn't have a meeting recently, but we are, the last 6 or 8 months, our director, Horacio, is doing a really good job in that role. We have 8 areas in community safety under the umbrella, and I'm trying to make it with schedules, and now it's worked for this next month for me to be scheduling out with the men and women that work within community safety. So the one I was at today was building inspections. So I got to sit down with Scott Ford, who's in charge of that area, and talked about some of the different things and what he was very proud of. So a couple of these was the inspection department is 100% staffed. That's something to be very proud of. Some areas they have a hard time getting the staff. Permit tracking systems and new activities to ensure required inspections are complete. One of them is if you get a building inspection, they won't come in and give you the building inspection until the electrical and plumbing and 10 inspections all done. Then you'll get your building inspection, then you can drywall. Very smart for the city, and to make sure there's everything is done within a system. And that's just brought in. Very, very good. We have now a front counter receptionist for the service center. you go in there, you can see the difference. Like, it's welcoming, and I really think they're doing a really great job. Another thing he brought up before I go off of mine, they got 2 new supervisors. Remember Jeanette, when she left, it was one of her goals, and some of us councillors in the last term, safety codes officer field and operations internal. So, and as well, they have a communication industry newsletter, which they send out on changes that could happen within the division building inspections. So it's not like, oh, we didn't know this. And actually, the majority of the builders in town know what might be coming in the future. So that's something new. Another thing I was very proud of, just get to the right page here if I didn't lose it. There's a couple of individuals that I went out today for an inspection. And I'm trying to find where I put it. Just hold up for, oh, I found it. Sorry, guys. Told you to be long-winded, and it's going to be. So today I went with, after Scott Ford was talking, I went with 3 individuals for inspections. Robin Montgomery, Plumbing and Gas Safety Codes Officer. Lauren Gable, Electrical Safety Code Officer, Inspection Services. And Wayne Olson, Building Safety Codes Officer, Inspections. We met at the building, it's called Stone Ridge Professional Building. It's right across the street from Eastlink Center. Meredith Thompson, Superintendent for FCM, had the tour of the building. And I'm proud to say this of this building because I wanted to see it because it's classy. So far in this building, and you say the economy's bad and it's terrible. This is speaking of Grande Prairie. The 4th, 3rd, and 2nd floors are already rented out, and they're not developed. They're only in their stages of the framing going up. And the quarter of the main floor is rented out. So there's only 3/4 of the 1 floor left. And we're not talking, this is like lawyers, engineers, IT. It's going to be a very busy area. As well, another thing I noticed, and I inquired how big it was. Because I walked in this room, it was 10 feet by 16 feet. So think of your house with your furnace, and maybe a little bit bigger. There was 2 boilers in there, and these 2 boilers are going to heat the whole building of 50,000 square feet of water in the winter. That's pretty amazing for energy efficiency. As well, in this building, 99.9%, or not 0.9, but 99% is going to be LED. Helen, LED. Inner and exterior. That's something to speak volumes of. And I asked about, in homes right now, if you buy LED lights and you put them enclosed, you're not supposed to because of heat. And that changes are coming to that, but what they have lights, they actually have kind of like an air system in the ones that are enclosed there for commercial buildings. So it's evolving and it's moving forward. So I'm glad to participate in one of the 8 in community safety umbrella. I'm proud to work side by side with Director Horacio, who worked strongly on this in Kinza. And just to speak to this, you think building inspections, oh, that's boring. I think three years ago in Fort Murray, they had 4 or 6 apartment buildings condemned. They were only 4 or 5 years old. They were actually collapsing from the basement down. And all the people that own them buildings and where they were left out with their mortgages and still paying and not living in there. So when someone comes to we're very big on development in this city. Either do it right or don't do it, and don't do it in the city. But if you want to do it right, come to our city. We want the business. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. That wasn't that long-winded. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just 3 or 4 things quickly. I attended one of the events I attended this past couple weeks was the Chamber Centennial Trailblazer Celebration and Barbecue. So kudos to the Chamber for the numerous events they had this year to recognize their 100th anniversary, and congratulate them on I guess celebrating 37 trailblazers from our community. Also, I just wanted to tell you I was very proud of Grande Prairie at the A&W Cruising to MS event, as Kevin had mentioned. I was pleased we had the CEO of A&W for Canada and CEO of MS for Canada here, and they were extolling the virtues of Grande Prairie and our giving nature and supporting events such as this. So it was really proud to be a Grande Prairien that day, as I do many days. And the other two are just tied in. I thank you for the tour of Alberta reception at the Dinosaur Museum. We had a reception, and really appreciated the chance to see the Dinosaur Museum. And it just reminded me again that to extend my congrats and kudos to Kevin for his work both on the Society's board and on the building committee. It's something we can be very proud of, and really do appreciate your efforts in that regard, Kevin. And also thank you finally the Tour of Alberta. I thought it was just an excellent event. Dawn and I took in quite a bit because she became very engaged too, which was awesome. But I want to thank the sponsors. I want to thank the local organizing committee, the volunteers, and our community for supporting the event. And I also agree with Helen. In talking to people, and the city staff involvement in the local organizing committee was extremely valuable, and the county staff, and really helped the local organizing committee. So thank you to those involved. Thank you, Mayor Gibbon.
Thanks, Councillor Radburn. Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I'll just highlight a couple things I went to here in the last couple of weeks. Went to an event put on by Enbridge and giving some information on the Northern Gateway pipeline and how what the process is and where they're at. And so it was really good to see where things are going with that and how that's going to impact Grande Prairie's economy once they get the ball rolling and the construction gets started. Which hopefully shouldn't be too much longer, but they didn't give any timelines, unfortunately. I guess I'll go right to the Tour of Alberta. Wow, what a fantastic event! It was incredible to be there at the start and finish lines and seeing the teams come through, see Grande Prairie on TV, and it was quite incredible. I want to give a special kudos to the Downtown Association and to Parks and everybody that especially did a lot of work on the downtown core. I had quite a few comments from people here locally and as well as other friends and family that were viewing it online from other places and seeing the riders go through our downtown core. It just looked spectacular, and people were commenting, man, it looks like they're going through the Okanagan or something. And so great event. I think it really highlighted the city and brought a lot of great positive attention to us, and I look forward to future events like it.
Thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. A few events to touch base on. I had an opportunity to attend the site blessing and sod turning for the new Royal Oaks Catholic School site, as well as a dinner and meeting with the Northern Gateway crew and an update on how things are coming along there. As well, with many people around the table, attended a luncheon with the UDI group from Grande Prairie, which was great. There was very good discussions there. And as been said, I wanted to thank the local organizing committee, which I was really proud to be part of, compiled of Grande Prairie, City of Grande Prairie employees and volunteers, as well as County of Grande Prairie employees and volunteers. I had an opportunity to attend every stage along the tour, and it truly is a world-class event. This year we are very fortunate with the World Championships coming up in the States in a few weeks to get some riders that we may not see back in Alberta for a few years. The Worlds haven't been they've only been in North America 3 times in 30 years, I think. So this year it really brought some high-level riders, and every stage, unfortunately, other than yesterday, didn't have great weather. However, every community across Alberta and definitely in the city and the county highlighted their communities and really showed the rest of the world what we have to offer in Alberta. So I wanted to say kudos to the Tour of Alberta people, the local organizing committees across the province, and say thank you to City and County Council for supporting that event. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. I just want to touch on Tour of Alberta. Obviously been mentioned by many others. I also want to extend my thanks to everybody involved in, first off, ensuring that the City of Grande Prairie and the County of Grande Prairie were on the list and had the ability to be considered. Certainly that was the first step, and then from there the implementation and execution by the team of local volunteers that made that happen, the sponsors that came together to support the event, was absolutely fantastic. And I think they brought a caliber of athlete to Grande Prairie that people really just didn't have a concept of what they were going to see. And I think it was fantastic to see the impact that made in the community and how much it was appreciated. Certainly want to congratulate the tour organizers for the success of their entire event, and look forward to seeing if there's an opportunity for the City of Grande Prairie to participate in future years. I'm going to just touch on one item. A number of others that I attended have been mentioned. There was one, though, that other council members weren't able to attend. Last Tuesday, I actually missed a couple of committee meetings because there was a regional collaboration workshop that I was made aware of. It was happening at GPRC. It was hosted by a center out of the University of Alberta. And so I was interested to go and to see what the perspective was on this. It was a full day event. I was one of only a few elected officials. I was the only elected official from an urban municipality that was there. There were none from the county of Grande Prairie or from any of the smaller municipalities in our region, but there were many from rural municipalities to the north. And there were a lot of people from, I guess, not-for-profit agencies and FCSS departments and economic development type agencies. So it was an interesting mix. In discussing why this event was happening with the hosts of the event, they noted that it was actually a initiative that was started under the previous government. So it is being funded by the Alberta government, Department of Municipal Affairs. Was started under the previous government, and I just, again, to get a little bit of extra context, the lead facilitator noted that they had actually worked with the Rural Development Institute out of Brandon, Manitoba. And the Rural Development Institute and Dr. Bill Ashton might be a name that's familiar to council members because he was actually here as a part of our symposium. The Rural Development Institute is the organization that worked with the Manitoba government in the development of their sort of strategy around municipal governance in the province. So our U of A guys had worked with this RDI out of Manitoba. And so I just found that interesting to see that the previous government had asked a similar kind of organization to do similar work across the province here. And I also find it interesting that the new government has chosen to continue that work. So it was a really valuable day to discuss what collaboration means and how regions work, and also to get the perspective of people that aren't necessarily elected officials. There were representatives actually from Sunrise House were there, and they were sort of learning about these municipal issues for the first time, and it was an interesting perspective to have their input into this. The results of this facilitated session is happening in a number of places across the province. The government is going to take the results of that dialogue and discussion, and those conducting the study will sort of summarize it for the province and presumably give it to the province to help them determine some of their future direction with municipalities. So I was really happy and fortunate that I was notified that this was happening, that it came to our attention, didn't come through sort of regular channels. And secondly, in terms of the committee meetings, I apologize for having to miss those, but I think it was absolutely something that we needed to be represented at, and look forward to the results coming from that in the future. With that, I think we'll call our meeting adjourned.